Thank you so much. Thank you. So, a couple years ago, me and a couple of my friends, we are sneaking up behind this cow to try to tip it over. And we get about like 10 feet away, and it like wakes up and sort of turns towards us. And this is when I notice that this cow has horns. True story. And I'm sitting there like, clearly I cannot outrun a bull, okay? No. But then I realized that I didn't have to outrun the bull. I just need to outrun at least one of my 3 friends, right, that I was with. Yeah, so as soon as I realized this, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's a bull! Right? Yeah. There was actually a brick wall at the end of this field. But no, I run all the way across this field. I look around and I beat all 3 of my friends to get to the field. But I love that story because I think it's a little bit the way that life is. I remember when I was 9 years old, I saw this kid one day wearing a soccer team uniform. Yeah, I know. And I was like, oh, I've got to get one of those. And that was like my mission in life, you know? But I never became a soccer player because a bull appeared in front of me. And I don't know what bull you may be dealing with right now, but I do know that there are always 2 ways to look at a difficult situation. For example, me and my friends were standing out front of a movie theater, and we are stuffing our pockets with snacks to smuggle in, right? Do you guys do this? Yes! And so, the last thing we have, though, is a 2-liter of Coke, right? Which is like, does not fit in anyone's pockets. And then I think of this brilliant idea, okay? Because my friend is wearing pants, I'm wearing shorts. So we switch. I take the 2-liter, I put it inside the left pant leg, and then I tie a knot underneath so it hangs there, right? Looks like instead of my leg being amputated up here, is amputated like down here. Yes. Yeah. And right, but here's the thing. I walk into the theater, and it's just swinging all around, right? And there's this security guard looking at me, and I can tell he wants to say something, right? But honestly, what is he gonna say? Oh, sir, there seems to be a problem with your leg. Oh yeah, no kidding. I don't have one. Thank you. True story. I tell you, I think I have been able to deal with my disability by being able to laugh about it. But I recognize that there are bulls that you and I face that are not funny. When I was 9 years old, literally the same week that I was going to try out for my first soccer team, the doctors found cancer in my leg and told me that I had a 50% chance to live. I spent 3 months on chemotherapy, but it like didn't work. And my parents told me that the doctor was going to cut my leg off. And I knew then I was never going to wear that uniform. I remember the morning of the operation, checking into the hospital. And by that time, I had been on crutches for several months because of the cancer in my leg. And I sat down in a chair in the waiting room, and I bent over and I wrapped my arms around my left leg. And a doctor and a nurse came in, and the nurse was pushing a wheelchair. And the doctor said, "We're ready to take you back now." I looked at that wheelchair, and I looked at him, and I said, "I think I am going to walk." And I'll never forget walking down that hallway, because I knew that those would be the last steps that I would ever take. I said that I think there's always two ways to respond to a difficult situation, and I really think that's always true. For example, some of you may be sitting there and thinking about me right now, and you're like, "Gee, this guy has a very obvious limp, and it probably totally kills his game with the ladies." I prefer to say that I now have a 100% natural pimp walk. We fly high, so high, you know this. Yes! Jim Jones! Awesome. I just feel like, I want to live my life to the fullest. And I don't have time to sit around and feel sorry for myself. It can be difficult because, I'm missing some of my parts. And I tell you honestly, in my life, I have had some dark days. And every morning, I have to remind myself that yeah, I'm missing some of my parts, but you know what? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That I am whole just because I decide to accept myself the way that I am. Not too long after I lost my leg, I started skiing. I learned how to ski, and when I was 16 years old, I heard that if you make the Paralympic ski team, you get a uniform. Yeah. Ballin'. So I trained for the next 6 years. And in 2006, I walked out into the Olympic Stadium for the opening ceremonies of the Paralympics. And I was wearing a uniform that said USA. I'll tell you, I think that was the most beautiful walk of my life. But you know what's interesting is that I didn't learn how to ski until after I lost my leg, which means that, don't miss this, the most beautiful walk of my life only happened because of the toughest walk of my life 12 years before in the hospital. In fact, I think it is because of my limp that I now have the opportunity to travel across the country sharing my story with groups like yours. And I think that is the perfect example of how sometimes I believe you can turn your limp into a pimp walk. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. It's an honor. Thank you.